That is already picked up. There you go. This is the basic outline, some very brief history about Honolulu transit plans. Why is Honolulu Rail a boondoggle, and what we've been trying for 6 years to stop it. After the oil embargo, you know, historically there was a renaissance of rail systems. Among them there was one in Honolulu. There was a pro-rail mayor, and how did that project was defeated? Well, an alternate mayor was elected. In 1991, the same mayor, now Fassi, takes over again with an even longer, heavy rail. But at the last minute, there was a switch in the council, and the financial plan collapsed. By a vote of 4 to 5, it was not approved, and when you lose the money, you lose the money. Then BRT came to the front, and we supported a big part of it. We had a disagreement about the central part of the project. It went all the way, and right before FFGA, the mayor actually pulled the trigger and he started construction. And the FTA revoked the record on decision, which was an unprecedented development. And since 2006, we have a 20 to 34 miles of heavy rail that now is in the courts for various NEPA and other objections. Let me show you some of the brief background here. Honolulu, as you would expect, it has problems. It's an island. It's a very compact city. It has a very small number of lanes for the number of residents that it has. Even very congested cities like Los Angeles have more lanes per 10,000 residents than Honolulu. So it is obvious that if you were to address congestion, you should minimally invest in some more lanes. We didn't do that. I want to bring your attention to something that Charlie Leo out of the UC system, professor of economics, brought up. And he says, never forget the law of large proportion. Investing $1 billion to the 85 to 90% chunk of the people who use it will do much more good than investing the same $1 billion to the 2% of rail or other transit form. It only stands to reason that this is something that we should be doing. Here is a picture of the costs of Honolulu Rail. These are in standardized $2006 with other well-known systems such as Miami. And here is Washington, D.C. And it is a per capita cost based on the 2000 census. So D.C. Metro was one of the most expensive systems we did in this country. And look how it compares to Honolulu, depending on who you believe, the city or the state accountants. So we're, you know, out of scale. You know, there are cartoons that they say, how do you feel about that? It's terrible, really. I mean, it's out of proportion for our tax-paying population. Then if you look at the FTA summary, they say we're going to have 100,000 riders the moment we open it. How ridiculous is that? Let me show you. Well, it is a heavy rail system, but with light rail trains. So its capacity is actually modest. Compare it to existing, fairly new light rail systems. Look how big those cities are, and look how small the ridership is. And here is Honolulu population and the ridership they expect. Of course, there is no direct correlation. There is no direct correlation between population and ridership, but there is some correlation. And of course, any way you cut it, in our corridor, we don't have, on the rail corridor, the population is less than 500,000 people. Heavy rail for less than 500,000 people, and they expect 100,000 riders on the opening day, about 130,000 later on. Ridiculous. Completely separate from the hui we have, you know, with Governor Cayetano, Cliff, and I, who were, you know, the staunch anti-rail. There is a very well-known professor of economics who independently, with his graduate and undergraduate students, did an analysis, and this is slide 22 of his analysis, that explains how good Honolulu Rail is. This is what you spend, this is what you get, from an economist's view. It is really outrageous as a case study of investing money. And Cliff already showed you these atrocious pictures of the waterfront and a small village of Waipahu and what it's going to do, rail is going to do for them. As you correctly mentioned, the train is unpopular. It never really had more than 35% support. And this poll by a pretty respectable internet newspaper, in fact its founder and owner is Pierre Omidyar, a multi-billionaire of eBay, etc. So they have the resources to conduct very large polls. The same polls that they said I would never win as mayor, and I never did. So there is basis for what they're talking about. So support for rail, 35%, and the same article says it's the same 35% in the last 6 years. It has never gone any higher. So they never had the critical mass that they always keep claiming that, you know, the public has voted. Here is a very good lesson comparing island to island. It's San Juan, Puerto Rico, this is Oahu. A perfectly matched comparison. Island, island. Heavy rail, heavy rail. FTA, FTA. Parcels bringing or parcels bringing. Look what happened. Cost. PB estimated 1.25. FTA approved it. 2.25. Almost 100% cost overrun. Riders. PB estimated 80,000. FTA, good number. They got 25,000. So they are open now for over 6 years, and they haven't even reached, if you looked at Wikipedia, the 40,000 mark, which is the 50% mark of the forecast. So this is what we have to look forward to. Furthermore, Ben Fuby of Oxford University, he has identified rail projects as the most fraught with deception and delusion among all infrastructure projects. Here is his graph. Rail projects stand out. Deception and delusion. Deception means that the proponents will willfully lie, even in the EISs and the rest of the documents. They clearly understate costs, and they overstate ridership. They are deluded themselves by always believing that their project will be much better, has nothing to do than the failures of the past. They're always special. Wait, let us build it and you will see. And this is what you will see. Yesterday we had the APTA person keep telling us everything is improving. It's not improving. This is the last 10 years of the history of transit. They cannot break 5%. They cannot break 5%. And of course it used to be 12% in 1958 where he showed us in his statistics. It's a terrible picture, so it's a lose-lose situation. And of course Hawaii has to do it the worst of the worst. We order trains from a bankrupt manufacturer and Saldo in a bankrupt country, Italy, located as far away as possible from Hawaii. So if you need a spare part, it has to take 3 days to come here, even if it's a little computer chip.
What country is that?
Italy. And Saldo, yeah. And of course, that's a perfect use for the trains we order, make them lunch wagons. The case in Honolulu is a case of extreme conflict of interest. Any stone you turn, you find PB under it. It is so amazing. Even the client, the city, the director was pulled out of PB to serve as the director of the city. So the client, the project manager, and the prime consultant are all PB. And you know, it's just a complete stonewalling of the whole process. And even the people at the FTA, most of them are ex-PB. So it's an amazing way. They know each other, of course. They help each other to, ram it as effectively as possible. They manipulated alternatives terribly. We don't have the time to go through all the details. That's one of the reasons Cliff and other prominent citizens sued them. They added 2 hot lanes, and they eliminated an express lane on the freeway for a net gain of 1 hot lane. And then they stopped that hot lane at the traffic lights. I mean, amazing. Even then, the hot lane would have won if we had used person total travel time instead of vehicle total travel time. By using vehicle total travel time, all the time that the people on the rail experience, it doesn't count because they're not a vehicle anymore. So they took these 97,000 people, remember, put them on the train, and their travel time doesn't count anymore. And then they present their decision. Train wins. Yeah, superior. Amazing level of straightforward cheating right in front of their face. Nobody recognized that. So what did we do? We forced revised scope.
Can you go back to that again? I didn't quite get that.
We'll get back to that. Let me finish the presentation on time and I'll explain it. Yeah. We forced hot lanes in the intelligence analysis. They found a way to botch it. We did not find hard enough in this, in the funding stage. They kind of pulled the rug from under us. We'll talk about it in a minute. We had a ballot initiative. Ran for mayor myself twice, and then I helped the governor to run. So we had 3 times the failure of having the proper leader there to stop it. Regarding funding, again, in 2006, the mayor asked for 1% tack onto the GET, but he got only half of that. They're still going to build it. However, even this half tack on the general excise tax, which applies to everything in Hawaii, like visiting your doctor, buying drugs, etc., it's good for at least $150 million a year. So they got a lot of money. And that's why they're able to actually, up to this point, defeat us. Although chances were good, the Republican governor at that point did not veto this bill. She did not even veto it. And unfortunately, then the funding went through. And once they have the money, it's just too easy to squeeze the opposition out. This is, I think, the biggest difference from the times before. The times before, they didn't have a dedicated source of funding. Now they have oodles of money, and FDA allowed them to use them for, propaganda. 2008 primary, that's myself, a council member and the incumbent. We stopped him from winning outright, but then eventually he won re-election. And then he kept pursuing this project. We did an initiative, Cliff was the chief of that. It didn't exactly succeed, but then the council put a yes or no vote. And here's what they got, with all the unions behind them, 50.6%. And that was the mandate from, they keep calling it to this day, since 2008, the public mandate. The public mandate. The public has mandated them to do this. In my opinion, we kind of diluted the effort by having, in 2008, 2 anti-rail candidates and this campaign. It's just we spread too thin to make a big, successful difference. So that was another defeat. In 2010, the mayor decides to go for governor. He loses, but another opportunity for us to run. I ran. My best score was at the debate. I got 74%, but I only got 20% of the vote. So that doesn't do you any good. I didn't have much time to much money to advertise. I mean, they ran with $5 million. I ran with less than $350,000. So still the most cost-effective campaign, but nowhere near enough for a win. Prominent citizens, as Cliff explained, they filed a lawsuit. A native Hawaiian, Poletka Lekini, filed a cultural lawsuit for sacred burial grounds. She lost. She appeals. And then unanimously the Supreme Court stopped the train for 13 months to do the full cultural archaeological study. That was a good intermission. Apparently it hasn't given us enough time to win on the federal lawsuit. Come to 2012, that's only last year, Governor Ben Cayetano comes out of retirement and he forms a hui with myself, Cliff, and all the rest, and handily wins the primary. Unfortunately, then everybody ganged up against him because he had an excellent chance of getting elected. I could have been his transportation director. We could have done a lot of good. But that didn't pan out, as we'll see next. The federal judge in Honolulu, Cliff filed over 50 complaints. He found that 3 of them have traction. So the city had to do a supplementary EIS, which has now, as of 2 weeks ago, submitted to the judge. We don't know what the judge is going to say yet, whether he's satisfied or not. And the decision from circuit court, not district court, is outstanding still. So here we ran with the governor there. We helped him as much as we can with BRT, traffic bottlenecks and all. We tagged this as a nice plan, called it fast. Not good enough. He was defeated roughly 55-45. So again, no win. He has sued construction unions and a shadow pro-rail lobby that actually spent millions to defame him. And that worked because they went door to door with mud. And I'm pretty sure he will win something big out of this, but it's not going to do any good to stop the rail. And we're coming to the conclusion here. The Council on Historic Preservation just a month ago said that, okay, the archaeological study was fine. There is a lot of details here that actually the process, even there, was manipulated, but, you know, the system plays the system. The Heart, as I said, completed the SEIS, And here is construction now in the middle of agriculture. Literally, this is a pumpkin and spinach patch. So even if you talk about high density of Honolulu, what is this? Watermelons. Just count the watermelons. What density are we talking about? So we're waiting for the fat lady to sing out of San Francisco. I'm personally expecting a lot of eminent domain lawsuits if that system, that project really goes through, because it passes through some major streets, and instead of condemning the whole property, it takes the first 10 feet of the property. But that's where a lot of small businesses do the retail part, and behind is the cooking or manufacturing. So they will be asking the city to take the entire parcel, not the first 10 feet. In brief, what did we do? We did pretty much everything. Politics, elections, state lawsuit, federal lawsuit, a lot of grassroots campaigns, as Cliff said, we hit all the rotary, etc. And except for the lawsuit, we spent something in the order of $1.5 million for all the work. They did, well, on their side, they passed the laws that they were convenient for them, and they also passed a law that enabled funding. And then they used government funds to run political campaigns and outreach. They pretty much went to all high schools and brainwashed everybody. They outnumbered us, outspent us by at least 6 to 10 times. And money talks. If you're on TV continuously spewing lines, your position gets to be the prevalent one. Even then, they only have 35% support. What happened this time when they are successful? Well, rail is politics, as we know, and the more one-sided, the better. And Hawaii is over 70% Democrat. That helps. Rail is money. The more, the better. Why do 1 billion BRT when you can do 5 billion rail? Because then there is more on the table. That's why the construction lobbies and all, they're so much in favor of this. The then mayor and the governor kind of created a hui, and they supported this from both angles. In addition, of course, you have the road and car opponents promoting Boondoogles. This is the Sierra Club to back rail, and a disappointment, but not a surprise. This is a refereed publication. All the authors are professors at the University of Utah. Bootleggers, Baptists, and political entrepreneurs. Bootleggers is pretty much the construction industry, etc., all the special interests. Baptists, Sierra clubs, and environmentalists. Political entrepreneurs, the mayor and the governor that facilitated this whole process with the rail. So it is actually the common way of achieving major objectives and major projects, forming all the huis together, the doers, the believers, and the politicians. So it's not surprising that actually they were able to pull it through the way they have this time. And of course, always follow the money. So this is one of the most poignant cartoons. This is what they were distributing actually in Honolulu in kindergartens. Brainwash the kids. Yes, it was pulled out because during actually the campaign elections, they would distribute all these to elementary schools to take home, colored with a payola. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. That was terrific. You've got 1 minute to cycle back to that one slide and just redo that one point in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Then we're still on schedule.
This thing doesn't show it. You think Mike is good with pictures, but where is it? Yeah. Right here.
It's a very texty slide.
Oh, come on. It doesn't show that. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. This is the one, right?
Is that the one?
Yeah. Yeah. Let me project it so. Okay. The last point that I used is that basically when you deal with transportation and you want to have objectives like the objectives they had in the study of mobility, you want to move people quickly, right? So all that matters is that you use people's travel time. TTT stands for total travel time on the specific city, in our case on our island. There are two ways to measure that. One is to count only the vehicle travel time. Look at vehicles. How many you have in a day, how much they travel, that's your vehicle travel time. This is case A without rail and case B with rail. But what matters is how many people actually traveled and what was their ultimate outcome from traveling and arriving. So you have the case before and the case with rail. Now, what's the difference? Using people travel time, you do not lose anybody who is on the train, because the train is its own guideway. See, before, the people that you have in the buses, they were counting them because they were on the highway. It's a highway model. Yeah? So when they're in the buses, you count your people, you increment their travel time. Once you take them and you helicopter them on the guideway, this is not a highway anymore. So the model loses them. In other words, it's a subtraction that you take from the road to the guideway, and you only count the road. That's why they used vehicle travel time. And they lost, by doing this, 97,000 people. Their travel time became ether. Although it takes them 35 minutes on the train, that account, 97,000 times 35 minutes, was never accounted in the model, because they are not in a vehicle anymore. They are on the guideway. So that's the big difference between vehicle travel time and person travel time.
Kind of like new math.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's great. Okay. Tiffany.